I just need this rental car. Because this fucking week, Cam and I fucking talk about a fucking hilarious movie by John fucking Hughes called Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So fucking buckle up and get fucking ready for the folding list. Just give me my car! Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Folding List. My name is Travis. I'm always kind of trying to bring you these movies that you can watch and fold your laundry to, all that good stuff. You don't really have to pay attention to them. And once again, I got this dude because I felt like he would always give me good, interesting conversation with all these movies. So, what's my co-host going by this week, man?
You know how I feel today.
Oh. I you started like that?
I feel like tired Stu Pickles. Do you remember that episode of Rugrats?
Oh, yes.
When Stu Pickles was up in the middle of the night making pudding for Angelica. Dee was
man.
She's like, what are you doing? I'm so late. And I've lost control of my life. That's how I feel right now, Travis.
Why is that? Do we need to get into it, or like it can be that kind of podcast for a little while if you want it to be, man? We can just like
sometimes you just gotta have these types of podcasts. These types of episodes. You know what? Forget the movie. Let's just talk about my problems for a second.
Let's make this about Cam.
Let's make this the Cam show for a second, okay?
Oh, the tired stew. Tired stew show.
Lost control of my life, guys. Anyway, let's continue with the episode. You don't want to hear my problem.
You're in sad dad mode. I guess that kind of matches the movie.
That's hilarious. That's perfect. Sad dad mode.
Yeah. All right, and then this week we're actually doing Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I've watched this movie a million times. Like. It's easily one of my dad's, like my whole family's favorite films. We always watch it around the holiday time because it's a Thanksgiving movie. It's like officially a Thanksgiving movie. Super rare.
That's so true.
I know we're not talking about like where Thanksgiving came from. It's really just like talking about being with your family and all that good stuff. And we have a guest this week that wanted to do that movie as well. It seems like he might be a pretty big fan of it. And this week we got Kramer. How's it going?
Oh, man, hanging in there. And I got to say, like, I love the podcast. And by the way, the movie, we'll get into it in a minute, but there are some different takes on the movie. I hadn't watched it for a few years coming into watching it this time last couple of days ago, but there's some new takes on the movie now that I've rewatched it after maybe 4 or 5 years. It takes a new spin.
It definitely does. Like, because when you're a kid, you're like, oh, this movie's so funny. That guy said fuck a bunch of times. But like,
yo, that scene was incredible.
But as an adult, you're like, man, there's a lot to digest with this. This is a pretty serious movie. Yeah. But Cam, why don't you go ahead and tell us what it's about?
So, okay. This movie was great. And like you said, it was like a typical dad movie, Steve Martin, all he wants to do is get home to his family, He works his big time job in New York, in 80s New York, by the way, where you have to queue for a taxi. And you know what was surprising to me at the time, though? Kevin Bacon made a cameo in this movie, like as a taxi. What is it? Like he was competing for a taxi or something like that?
Yeah, straight up. I think he had already like done Footloose and Tremors by this point, so people knew who this dude was.
So he was just put there just for like eye candy, right?
Yeah. I think it's just a straight up cameo.
I don't even think he had a line in it. That he had
just a look.
Just that look.
I was like, that was a pretty dope, cameo. But yeah, Steve Martin, he's just trying to get home, for Thanksgiving. And then John Candy, here he comes, just fucking everything up. And, John Candy, like, I love John Candy. Like, he's a big part of, my childhood, just from Cool Runnings to like all the other just crazy
Uncle Buck,
yeah, man.
What is it? Even Summer Vacation. I don't know if you've seen that one, That's another favorite too.
Oh yeah, we could talk about that in a future episode.
Man, yeah, I might want to have to watch that. We could do a whole John Candy stretch, man.
You know what? That's a good idea. Yeah, let's actually make an episode about John Candy for one of these episodes.
There are a lot of unknown movies with John Candy, and there are some crazy ones out there.
Yeah.
Oh man. yeah. I guess that's true because I haven't seen like a lot of the smaller stuff. Like I've seen all of his big movies a million times, but like I know, like you said, there are some crazy ones out there. Do you know any of them like off the top of your head?
Who's Harry Klump? That was one of the big ones that I had, and he plays kind of like a private detective / almost like MI6 type guy, and he's just an idiot savant the entire time. It's fantastic. The end of it, not to give anything away, but full drag John Candy at the very end, which is
oh, that sounds so familiar. I feel like I've seen that. Man,
it took me a long time to remember this movie's name. I had to actually look it up. I was like, what is that movie he's in? And he's the detective. And
yeah, he's done a lot of stuff. Yeah, he's done so much stuff. Like I'm looking at his catalog right now, and it goes back for like since the 1976.
Oh yeah,
he's been doing it.
Canada too. He's Canadian. He started up there in some like a sketch group. I can't remember the name of the sketch group. But yeah, like that's why this movie's great is because John Candy is like a comedic genius, and basically I think that like that's kind of the whole premise of the movie is that Steve Martin is trying to get home, bad things keep happening to him, but John Candy makes them worse every time.
And he doesn't even mean to.
No.
That's the crazy thing about it. It's like I'm expecting him to be like this scammer, like fuck up. That it's like, oh, like I can't wait to get away from this guy, but he's lovable at the same time, but he actually like really means well in a lot of things. He's just dirty. Yeah. I mean, you know, but he's a fantastic salesman too, and that's one thing that really surprised me about his role. Like he was just selling, the
shower curtain
rings. Yeah, I'm like, damn, that's some pimp shit.
Yeah, that scene when he's selling the ivory rings to everybody, and they make you look at least 18 years old. Like that seems probably one of the best scenes in the movie, in my opinion.
Oh man, and to see them like actually wear them as earrings as he's selling them to them, I was like, that's genius right there.
Was it selling ketchup to a man in white gloves?
Yeah,
like sell anything to anybody. He was like a very charismatic dude, just kind of a lovable dude, but he was kind of getting in Steve Martin's way over and over and over. Like you said, that when he's racing to catch that taxi, like John Candy is the one that ends up stealing it from him. And I don't think I realized that when I was a kid. I don't know if I remembered that, but he was the one that took his cab to the point where how much did he pay for that? Like
$75. Well, at first it was like $50. Well, he offered the guy $5. And then the guy talked him up to 50, and he was like, well, if you pay 50, I know you pay 75. And I'm like, wow, that's a hustler right there.
Cold-blooded.
Cold.
But yeah, Kramer, like, why, like, actually 2 questions. I guess, what is Kramer your real name, or is that something you go by? And then I guess another third question, why is this movie special to you?
It's what I go by.
Okay. Is there a reason for that?
It's just what I've gone by for the longest time. Between sports and everything else, I've just always gone by Kramer.
Oh,
no
really?
real good story behind it. Yeah. I
just want to make sure
a lot too, so.
I was about to say, Is it a Seinfeld reference?
I was just going to say, America, it's not because of Seinfeld.
No, this is it did get a lot of Seinfeld references and stuff like that, but yeah, no, Kramer's just the last name on that one. So yeah, I go by Kramer pretty much anywhere I go. It's an easy thing to remember too when you're talking to someone. You tell them a first name, they forget it. You tell them Kramer, hey, they remember that's life because they always say, oh, like the Seinfeld guy. Yep, just like the Seinfeld.
Easy to remember.
Yep, easy to remember.
I think I thought it was just an alias because I didn't know your whole name. I just knew I knew the first name, and I was like, oh, but he goes by Kramer. That's interesting. I wonder what the story is. That'd be good to talk about.
You know, I do appreciate you not asking if my first name was Cosmo. That is something I get a lot.
Oh man, I couldn't imagine. Yeah, you're probably not even too much of a fan of the show at this
Oh
point.
no, I love Seinfeld. Regardless,
Okay,
I still
cool.
love Seinfeld.
Yeah, I throw it on all the time. It's that's one I remember watching every day at 6 o'clock because of our time zone. Watch Seinfeld at 6 o'clock while we're either cooking dinner or making dinner as a kid because when it was syndicated, I watched that. I watched it all the time, and it's almost even better now as an adult. It's crazy.
It stands the test of time. I can't go watch the other sitcoms from back in the day that I watched as a kid, but that one I can still go back and watch, and I almost appreciate it more as an adult.
Yep.
There's a lot more nuance that you can catch on in that.
Yeah, man. It's like I when I got older, I kind of realized I was like, man, I think a lot of my social awkwardness came from Seinfeld and overthinking every social interaction you could possibly go through.
That's hilarious.
You're thinking about that, and you're just like, I don't want to be that dude that's like, why did he do that? Like, no, I just I just wanted to play every situation as normal as possible. But Seinfeld told you over and over that they can make a story out of anything, which I still love that show to this day. It's great. Larry David's the man. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I would say I was a fan of Seinfeld as a comedian, but that show is out of control. But yeah, so how do you feel about this movie? What are do you have like a lot of old thoughts, a lot of new thoughts?
Old thoughts are going to be like you were a kid watching it with my parents, and it was the one of those few times when you were back in the 80s growing up, and it was like, hey, like, you know, you got to hear, you know, fuck, and all the other cuss words all over the place. And you're like, oh, I get to watch this, but this is my family movie. We're watching this. This is Thanksgiving movie. So yeah, like back in the day watching it, I was like, oh, this is great. I love it. Re-watching it, I find that as much as I still enjoy the movie, there's a lot of nostalgic factor going back into it because you can read a lot more into this movie knowing what was going on, and we'll touch more on kind of our thoughts of towards the end of the movie and maybe what would have been the sequel to this movie later. But I don't know. They're rewatching it. You kind of have to pay attention to more of this movie. It can be on in the background, but there's a lot of nuance that goes on with the acting between John Candy and Steve Martin that I don't like. If you're not paying somewhat attention, this is what I'll put on. I'll start folding my clothes. I'm putting the clothes away. I'm going to start watching the movie, and I'm going to get back to the clothes later. Like, I'm going to have to pay attention to why did the car burn down? What's going on with this?
Oh, man.
Unless you're watching that whole scene, you're not going to catch on to a lot of the subtle pieces of this movie. And that's just John Hughes. That's his comedy.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it. Loved it then because I was a kid and I got to hear fuck and I got to hear everything else. And I love the one scene where he had my favorite scene probably is when Steve Martin's trying to buy his plane ticket. Everything's booked, and coming from a retail side, being able to hear someone say, well, I guess you're fucked.
It was great. Yeah, that lady, she played that part really well. With her
Ben
accent.
Stein was pretty nice too. His one little line that he got. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, because I think weren't both of them in Ferris Bueller? That's another.
He reuses a lot of his actors, or kind of his non-main cast, but a lot of his like side actors and stuff like that. He uses with a lot of them.
Yeah, because I started to see a lot of familiar faces, like you said, going back through it again. And you know, like I always talk about these movies because they're great to just kind of throw on while you're doing something. But if you haven't seen them in a long time, and you really take that time and like sit down and watch it, you're like, oh, this is why you have to like you said, this is why you have to pay attention. Like that when he was sitting there in the chair and he was looking at John Candy, he was like, where do I know this dude? And it was just that flash of him holding like with a taxi door in front of him and him being like and shocked, and then it went back to the airport terminal. Like I had to rewind it because I don't know if I ever noticed that before, like as a kid, because it really is like maybe a second. Like it's a few frames of him just like they took the time to bring in the taxi door into the airport while they're making this movie. Instead of going back and just showing a replay, they really made the time to make that joke of like the door in the airport, him with the hat on and the coat and all that kind of stuff. Like I laughed at that. I had to pause it laughing so hard because I was missing stuff out of the movie because Steve Martin is obviously like a comedic genius, but John Candy is like next level almost. They're both, especially on screen. I always feel like John Candy might be the funnier dude on screen, but I think Steve Martin is just like a better showman almost. He's like better in front of a crowd.
Yeah, their dynamic is fantastic. I think like my favorite scene of the whole movie was when they had to share a bed together. Like the subtle like, you know, things that happened. Like for instance, when he was like, "Oh, you know, how about that Cub game last week?"
Yeah.
Like
even before that.
Yeah.
When they walked into the room.
Oh, yeah.
And they noticed the bed, and they were just looking at it and like, huh. He just started like moving the hangers in the
Hey Travis. Hey Travis.
Yeah.
You want to take a shower?
No. Man, that whole scene is just—it's just crazy. The whole scene is crazy, and if you think about it, it really is just that little room. Like,
yeah,
these two dudes together, and then you add John Hughes on top of that, which, like you were saying, Kramer, it's he's all about like subtle comedy and almost dry by comparison, but he knows how to like turn it on the extreme side of comedy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not to go from like the little subtle looks and moments to Steve Martin getting picked up by his testicles, like John Candy said. I've never seen somebody get picked up by their testicles before. Like, oh my god!
Yeah, the stunts in this movie were pretty good too.
Oh man,
yeah, and you wouldn't think that a family movie like this would have stunts, you know?
Yeah.
Well, then again, Home Alone had stunts.
Yeah, I was about to say they have like I forgot what it's called, but they have a like a stuntman move that's named after Home Alone, because I think it's just called the Home Alone Fall, because it's the burglars multiple times in the movie and in real life. These guys were doing this, jumping up into the air and then landing flat on their back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, and they did it for real. And it's like you can tell, because they don't do those kind of stunts like that anymore, and especially in like kids comedies, they're not going for it that hard, because that looks real. Yeah, because it is real. They're
That's
just jumping
crazy.
off of 3 stairs to the ground on their back, just for some laughs.
Yeah, I mean, that's John Hughes, though, what he did. He tried to make sure everything was as real as possible with all of his movies. Because I think even if I remember going back and watching, like, they made where they landed a soft platform, so it would give way. If you watch the movie, you kind of see that little bit of give way on those stairs when they land at that spot. So they were literally just jumping and landing on their backs, like just crossing their fingers and hoping they don't hurt themselves and they finish the movie.
That's
insane. It was great. It played out great in the movie.
Because did John Hughes do Home Alone as well?
Yeah.
Man,
that's so crazy.
That.
I'm starting to see I'm starting to see the trends of all these movies that we're talking about now, like with the shot style and everything.
And Chicago, like almost all these movies are either based in Chicago or like in this one trying to get to Chicago, because I think he's from there if I'm not mistaken. But they shot all of those movies. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, what was the other one? Home Alone. They shot a lot of these movies in Chicago, and like I hadn't been to Chicago ever until recently. And like that's when we met, right?
Yeah, that was when we met. And you know what? By the way that you were talking about Chicago, I would have thought that you were from there, but it didn't occur to me because I remember like we were going through like the museum, and you were like, oh yeah, you know, this is where House originated. You can see. I'm like, oh man, this guy knows a lot about Chicago. I was like, yeah, we're going to this restaurant over here. And then I found out that we're from like the same state in Florida.
Yeah, Kramer. That's part of like why all this got started, is because Cam and I met in Chicago because Luis was taking us to the con up there. We were having a good time going to that, and Cam was a part of the crew as well. And he shows up, and I think the first time we started to notice all these weird similarities were when we were in the car, and we were talking about that whole like at the time it was like type your birthday into this scrambler thing and it'll come up, or not scrambler, but type your birthday and show a news article that happened on your birthday from Florida. And I was like, yeah, I got this dude getting hurt because he tipped over a vending machine. And Cam was like, ha, me too.
Yeah, I remember that. And then like we started going down the rabbit hole where it just got to a point where it was just like freaky.
It's almost weird to talk about because like our birthdays are 2 days apart. I thought it was like 2 days in a year. Nope. 2 the year.
Yeah.
Like he's 2 years older than me, born in Florida, and then
like your sister is like 9 years or 8 years apart from you.
8 years older than me. And
yeah,
mine
mine is 9 years older than me. One time we were trying to get together to go to a movie with our group, and we both went to the wrong movie on the same night.
Everybody else made it.
Everybody else made it, but we
went to the wrong movie theater together from separate destinations, from separate locations. We made it to the wrong theater together. We were like, man, everybody else must be late. Like, nope, both wrong.
Yeah, and we got the same information. Well, that's the weird thing.
And you both read the same information. And I have to ask, what movie was it?
Oh, what was it?
Oh man, I couldn't tell you. This was back. We were going a good bit at that point.
Yeah, it was years ago. Yeah.
Ooh. Man. Yeah, like there's there's a lot of things like that. But yeah, I'm not from Chicago.
Yeah, we're Florida boys, unfortunately.
I'm just from the north of you. I'm a Georgian, so I mean, I've never been to Chicago myself, so I would like to go visit. I hope one of these days I can go to the con too.
Yeah,
Chicago.
Yeah, you definitely should check it out. That's easily one of the like coolest places I've been to. Haven't been a ton of places, but Chicago, like I'm pretty sure other people have said the same thing. It's a cool city. A lot of cool stuff, and I think that's why like John Hughes doesn't have a problem like shooting multiple movies in Chicago, because there's just a lot to offer. Because even in this one, we didn't see much of it, but you definitely see the train, like the cool like above ground train system that they have. We definitely don't have that in Pensacola, Florida. I don't think we have. It's just a bunch of
alligators.
Big wide open roads. Nobody on them.
Yeah, you got crazy people in Florida.
Yeah, we got a lot of those for sure. But yeah, so the like basically their flight has to land early. Why did their flight have to land early? I can't remember now.
I think wasn't there like a storm or something like that?
I think Chicago was snowed out, so they couldn't get to Chicago airport, so they had to go somewhere else. I can't remember where they landed, but it was a long ways away.
Milwaukee or something?
Yeah, I think that was right.
Somewhere there. Of course, Steve Martin, he had the middle seat. It's not a good movie unless you got the star in the middle seat on the airplane.
Well, that's a very shitty place to sit.
Oh yeah. I remember I got anxiety on the middle seat one time. I was like, I got to get out of here.
End seats only. Can't be between unless you know who you're sitting around the entire time. It's end seats.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Man, I got super used to flying when I went to college in Orlando, and I was, from Pensacola, and I got so used to flying because at the time gas prices were super high, but a flight from Pensacola to Orlando was $90, and gas from Pensacola to Orlando and back is like, at the time, like $70. So I flew back and forth so many times from Orlando to Pensacola, and it's like a 45-minute flight, to the point where I would fall asleep before the plane took off and then wake up as we were descending, because it was that short of a trip. Like I got so used to all of the like just doing the bags and getting on the plane, and like you said, making sure to pick what seat you're getting, because you don't know until you start flying a lot, but that shit matters. When you can't move, when you're crushed up like Steve Martin in this one, like it's not going to be a good time. Those flights can get real shitty, no matter how long they are, really, because it'll end up feeling like you're on a bus, because they didn't make it to the bus yet, right? They go into the train. Did they do trains first?
I think they did trains first, because didn't it break down or something? Because they parted ways, right? quote unquote parted ways.
I think they parted ways right after the train, right? It was the whole breakdown of the train because he found this guy who he had sold something to, and his son or cousin picked him up and drove him to the train station in the back of their truck.
Oh yeah, that guy.
And then they get on the train, and then like after the train breaks down, like they're parting ways, and you just see John Candy pulling that big ass trunk behind him the whole way, and Steve Martin's just gone. He's like, I'm done. Like I'm out of here.
Man, what was it? Was his name Owen? Was that the guy's name?
Was it? Oh, the guy who picked him up. I think it was Owen.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's along those same lines. But yeah, it's something like that.
Man, that guy. The acting on this guy was phenomenal.
Oh, but I've seen. I'm another guy I've seen in a million things, and I can't remember what else I've seen him from. It's always like concerned dad, but it's real weird to see him play like that, like you said, Owen or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
he's like, she's real strong.
Yeah, he's got a lot of range. He was in Spider-Man, actually. Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah, he was the professor.
Lizard. Yeah, the lizard.
Lizard, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, like all these people, you've seen a million different faces. Like cuz they get on the actually you know what? Let's take a quick break and catch our breath real quick, and get some water and all that good stuff. I was about to like take a sip of water while we're recording. No, let's just go ahead and take a break real quick, and we'll be right back with more of the folding list. Wow, did you hear that? We were both hilarious yet insightful. Anyways, thanks for listening to each episode of The Folding List. We appreciate the support, and we're glad you're not just hate listening. Actually, we don't care. Just keep coming back and listening. And while you're at it, make sure to check out the other podcasts in the Chino umbrella. We've got the Nightly Binge, the Movie Dogs, and Sandusky's Talk Shit. All great podcasts with interesting people and topics. Back to the show. All right, and welcome back. Yeah, so like I just kind of wanted to, take a quick break to refresh real quick, because you get so caught up in a lot of the different parts of the movie, you almost forget about the better parts of the movie. And I think one of my favorite scenes, probably a lot of people's favorite scenes, is the car scene when they're driving in the rental car that they finally get. Like that scene,
it was so cartoony. It was so cartoony. Man. It was so.
Oh yeah, that was a great scene.
Because just even the getting the jacket off, like, or not even that, the car seat, it starts with him John Candy's character is trying to get comfortable in the passenger seat, and this is 1986,
87.
What's the 87?
Yeah,
87.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the year we were born.
No, November 25th, 1987.
Damn it. So weird.
That
man.
is weird.
Didn't even think about that. Anyways, this is why I don't like to talk about it.
That's so funny.
I don't really like talking about all of our weird similarities. Like, we picked this movie and it happened to come out, a week away from our birth. But anyways,
it's the weirdest thing, man.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, so this I'm sure is like back when like electronic seats were still fairly new. So I'm sure there were a lot of them that were super buggy and weird. But especially in whatever car that was, it was like some weird knockoff Chrysler. I couldn't tell what it was, but it was very, very ugly.
Yeah. I looked away for a second.
Of some sort that has the nice wood grating panels across the side.
Ooh,
right.
Yeah, classic.
Plastic dashboard and yes. Yeah, like in that scene, like I looked away for a second and then I didn't know. Like, okay, so let's go back. Jacket off. That's actually probably a very appropriate title for this whole scene, because I was wondering, what he was doing. Like, he looked like he was getting real comfortable. I'm like, okay, is this some kind of like sexual thing or something like that?
He's just waiting for Steve Martin to go to sleep so he could crank it.
Yeah.
You got to make the long drive somehow, right?
Yeah. Like VTech just kicked in, yo. That whole thing.
Oh no.
I was like, whoa, let me rewind for a second. But okay, so that happened. When was it when they were heading towards the semis? Was that before or was that after the jacket off scene?
Oh, it's definitely after the jacket, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
That was right after the jacket scene.
Okay.
Because he's trying to like take the jacket off while driving and dancing in the front seat, having a great time, and then he gets the right arm of the jacket stuck behind like the seat belt or something, and the left arm of the jacket stuck behind the handle on the side of the seat. So he has both of his hands basically tied behind his back while he's driving on a snowy highway at night, and Steve Martin's asleep in the passenger seat.
Yeah, he's driving with his knees, right?
Yeah.
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 So that's when
Super
I looked.
safe.
That's when I looked up. I was like, what kind of hip movements is he doing right now? Like, like is he like winding pine the floor or something like that? I was like,
winding pine the floor. Oh man. Not like he hooked both of his arms basically behind his back. So after a while, he just like has to rip his arms free. But when he does that, the car spins off the highway. And then Steve Martin, of course, doesn't wake up. Like this whole scene is super, like you keep saying, like super cartoonish compared to the rest of the movie. But like that's John Hughes just like killing it, able to take you from one type of comedy to the next. But then they get back on the highway, but they don't know they're going the wrong way on the highway. So they're going down the highway, and then the couple next to him,
yeah,
right?
They're like, hey, you're going the wrong way, and they're like, oh yeah, he's drunk.
And John Candy's sitting there saying, "Oh, you're drunk, crazy stuff like that."
How would he know where we're going?
Yeah,
of course we're going the right way. But and then obviously, by the time Steve Martin realizes that the median is on their right, he's like, wait a minute. He looks up and they're headed like directly at two semi-trucks to where luckily John Candy's able to go right down the middle. And
this part was so perfect. I mean, like, okay, all right, I'll let you say it.
All right, yeah. So they're going. John Candy's able to go right in between the trucks. They don't swerve, and it almost feels like they're going down a semi truck that's like 100 feet long because it's just sparks flying and
like quick cuts.
Cutting back and forth between the both of them screaming. And then Steve Martin turns into a skeleton. Like a screaming skeleton.
And John Candy turns into the devil himself. So.
Yeah.
John Candy double made it for me. That was great.
Yeah, I saw that. That shit was so fucking funny. Like with the high pitched screams, like on top of that, like I was like, I'm done. Like this movie is great. Like this movie is fantastic because it subverts your expectations. You know, like I didn't expect to see something so silly like that within this movie. It's like you expected to see it, but you didn't expect it to go so far.
Yeah, and it's such a like somber movie because they have that. It's a sad. Like there are a lot of moments in this that are truly sad. Mm-hmm. Like even after this, the car is parked on the side of the road, and John Candy. Oh, we forgot that part. John Candy like drops a cigarette in the back of the car and doesn't know it. So they're sitting on the side of the road and they look back and the car is just on fire. So the car like burns up, but for some reason it's still drivable. So they're in the middle of a snowstorm basically, and they find a place to stay, but John Candy doesn't have enough money for the room and Steve Martin does. And they say, fuck it, we're not going to do this. No, you're just going to have to go somewhere else. So John Candy sits in the car and he's talking to like the picture of his wife and all this kind of stuff. And when you're younger or whenever you see it the first time, you're like, oh, he's just like looking at this picture of his wife because he misses her. And he's like, I wish you could be here, but you can't. This is awful. I guess I'll just sit here. I'm pretty sure he would have died if he sat in that car. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Spoiler alert, audience. If you've never seen this movie, it's a 34-year-old movie at this point. Spoiler alert, his wife is dead.
He's been dead for like 8 years.
Yeah, she's been dead a long time. So him being like, well, I guess I'll just go to sleep in this blizzard outside in the cold, wishing I could be with my wife. He wasn't, I don't think he was planning on saying good morning.
Nah.
Like, I think homeboy was going to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, it is a, oof.
Yeah, he wanted to meet his wife and Jesus that night.
Oh,
there was a lot that he did throughout the movie that made it almost seem like he was just sabotaging his entire life.
That's true. Yeah.
Stole, like, taking the cab from the guy. That was kind of starting it. But later on, he does a lot. Like, he takes Steve Martin's credit card.
Yep.
And that's how he takes Steve Martin's rental card. And that's how that whole scene plays out, is he takes the rental car because Steve Martin goes and tries to get it from the lady. And it's already taken because John Candy had taken his credit card and checked it out before him.
Oh, that's what happened.
I didn't even realize that.
And they did everything, and he purposefully stuck them together the entire movie. It's almost like he's egging this guy on. Just, I'm ready. Like, it's been 8 years now. I haven't been with my wife for 8 years. And he makes subtle hints and drops it to Steve Martin the entire movie.
Man,
interesting. I never even realized that.
Yeah, because have you seen this movie, Cam? I always forget to ask. You just throw this stuff on the list and don't ask if you've seen it. Have you seen this movie?
So yeah, I literally just watched it today, which is why it's so fresh for me.
Yeah.
But I've never seen it before today. But these kind of movies, like 80s New York movies, I love this. I love that shit. I love seeing. It's kind of like walking back in time when I'm seeing everything. Back then,
I'm sure New York was a completely different place than it is now, and I'm not super familiar with New York, but I'm sure it's a completely different place than what it was in the mid 80s. Completely.
Man, Trading Spaces was probably my biggest eye opener. Just to see rich people in 80s New York, I'm like, man, that's cool.
Talk about another great movie that played. I think that was 8 or 9. Man. That was another great movie.
Oh man, I could talk for days about that shit.
I don't know if I've seen it, but I can't remember the last time that I've sat down and watched the whole thing. And I think I only did that one time. Mm-hmm. I just didn't watch that a bunch of times when I was younger, but I've definitely seen it. I just probably need to see it again. I know it's a classic.
Yeah,
it was hilarious when I saw it. And Kramer, where'd you say you were from again?
I'm from Georgia.
Okay. Did you say North Georgia?
Yeah, you can say North-ish Georgia.
Yeah.
I'm above Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah, I got
you. Duluth?
No.
Further.
Ooh,
Tennessee?
Tennessee? No, that's not where.
Is that north? Hold on, America. Let me look at it.
I am in Georgia.
Yeah.
I am in North Georgia.
Hold on. Let me refer to the map real quick. Let me see. There's Alabama. There's
Ohio?
Tennessee's above. I'm still within Georgia. Funny you say Ohio.
Wait a second. Chicago?
Oh, word.
Oh, full circle. Chicago. There it is right there.
There you go.
Chicago,
I want to go back to something Travis said earlier about.
What'd you say, man?
You were talking about something about John Candy earlier about being one of your greatest from the comedians, and I was going back and looking at all the movies that he had done in the past, and there's very few that I can see him as the lead on. He's always paired with some other iconic, or at least that became iconic ever since.
That's true.
You've got Steve Martin, you got Bill Murray, you've got Dan Aykroyd. He's been with them in almost all of his movies. There's very few I can think of that he's the lead. You got Uncle Buck and
Uncle Buck.
But other than Uncle Buck and the one that I mentioned earlier, who's Harry Crumb, I can't think where he's the main guy. But he is so damn good. He should have been in way more movies back in his prime as the lead. But maybe I just can't think of any off the top of my head. But I see everyone else as the star in a lot of his movies.
That's interesting. Because I know he did a ton of stuff with all of the SNL people. I know that's a big part of it.
Ooh.
But I guess you're right. He may have, because you said he's done a ton of stuff we haven't seen. So that may be part of it. He may not have been a actual filling seats leading man at the time. because I guess that was like back when all of the SNL people were killing it too, like Chevy Chase and like you said, Bill Murray. Yeah. Maybe it was they were just sucking up so much of the air, like he didn't get any of the good parts. Everybody's like writing stuff with Bill Murray in mind, like they're already doing that. Chevy Chase, like I'm sure Fletch was like written for Chevy Chase type thing. Yeah. But yeah, man, like Uncle Buck is definitely that's oof, man. That I've seen that a ton of times when he has that hatchet and he's like I got it in the car. I can show it to you. Just follow me over to the car. And he's like shining it in the light, like, yeah, got it right here. But yeah, like John Candy, and like I think that's part of the magic with this movie is that he's able to go from like this crazy, annoying, like, get the fuck away from me type of guy to, oh man, like, just come inside out the cold because you're gonna get sick. You're probably not gonna make it. Come inside. And like, that's kind of what ends up happening. Steve Martin just like can't let him go. And you almost start to understand it, but I honestly feel like the moment you really start to understand it is when he comes back to the train station. And he's like, and he's still sitting there, and you're like, oh, he's like basically a homeless man. Like, especially if he doesn't have, and he says that. He says, I don't have a home. And that his wife's been dead for 8 years. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. And he's able to play that scene straight. Like, he's not playing it like in a comedic way because it's not a funny moment. It's a super sad moment, but he's able to do it. And I think that's part of like why this movie is so good is that it's able to go from like cartoonish, he's in a devil costume, like a cheap devil costume spandex, to being like, oh my God, this guy's life is so sad and he just wants to be with people on Thanksgiving. He just needs to be around someone. But yeah, so like they get to his house and it's this big welcome home thing, and the wife is looking at Steve Martin like she missed him, and then she's kind of looking at John Candy kind of weird. Yeah,
she was really weird though. I mean, like, who looks at their husband like that, after like a few days or something like that? Oof. Like she looked at him like he came home from war. Which technically,
I'm so glad you made it back. It's been a hard journey for you.
Yeah, I mean, well, technically, he kind of was at war for a little bit for the whole movie.
Oof. Yeah, he's fighting for his life.
You survived a lot,
man.
So, but I also remember, like, how many times did he actually reach out to his wife throughout this entire movie? Remember, no cell phones. This is all pay phones and from hotel rooms. So it's not like now where it's like I'm gonna get a live stream update from my wife when I'm like, something's going down. No, it's. I got to call 3. You get to call once, maybe twice a day from him if you can get to a payphone. Yep. So she legitimately probably didn't know what was going on. So in that time, yeah, I mean, she might have thought, "Oh my God, he's dead. I didn't hear from him for 8 hours."
That is true.
He's gone.
That is
true. That strange man he's with has killed him.
Real weird look in his eye. It looks a little twisted there at the end.
Yeah, like you said, he's kind of just like a real strange dude to just let in your house after all of that around your children. But yeah, they're good friends. And like you were saying, he has that weird look in his eye. Did you were you thinking that everything was gonna? Oh yeah, you did say that, didn't you? Say you had an idea.
I think there was going to be something coming up at the end. Like, so watching this as a kid, you never catch on this, but like he just opened up to this man about how he's so lonely, hasn't been around his wife, and Steve Martin and his wife are there doting on each other the entire time. And I literally thought this man was about to break. Like, you're about to see a week later, and everyone's gone, and it's just Tom Candy taking over the house of everybody. It's just like, this could have gone a completely different way. They could have if they wanted to, but it's John Hughes. He's not going to go that way. But they could have.
You know what?
They're all propped up in the dining room. It's like, it's Thanksgiving forever.
It's Thanksgiving for everybody.
That's awesome.
It goes back to the Thanksgiving movie. Oh god.
I would actually like to see that. Like, if that was an origin story of like this super like scary serial killer where his origin was a comedy. I would love to see that. I'm like, oh, this is how he got crazy. Okay.
And the trailer's like all goofy, like, come back and see part 2. and then you get to the theater and you're like, it's a murderer? Oh no.
What just happened? He's on the run from who now? What?
Oh man. You see him like all, just like you said, just stuffed in the living room, like little Joker smiles like on their face.
He's just back in that burnt out car driving around. He's got the same outfit on at all times. Da-di-da-di-da.
Looking for another sucker. Hey, he's a good salesman. I mean, he could do it. I would like to see that.
There's definitely another theory that his wife is in that trunk.
Oh, yeah.
They're carrying around
what's in that trunk.
No, you never see the inside of the trunk. So she might still be around. Yeah. Just not out and about.
Not how we know her.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that is. Oh man, see now I need to know what's in the trunk. It's kind of like the box, man. The 7 what's in the box.
Yeah, I'm on Reddit right now.
Oh, don't go down the rabbit. Don't go down
the rabbit. I was about to say
for a while, man.
No, it's too late. I'm already here.
I guess on that note, we'll let Cam. We'll let Cam go down the rabbit hole on this one now that he's finally seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and he sees the heartfelt side, but there's also a deep Reddit conspiracy that he can dive into. But yeah, Kramer, thanks for joining us and talking about this movie. You knew a lot about it. We always appreciate that. You had a lot of good insight there, especially on like what the sequel could be. I know that could be.
I'm here for the future. That's all I'm here for. You need me again, I can give you those weird, deep conspiracies.
A man with vision. I dig that, man. That's cool. But yeah, what is it? Tired stew. Yeah,
I've lost control of my life. That's how I feel.
Hey, yeah, man. Take it one step at a time.
You know what? We didn't get to talk about my problems. Actually, part 2 of this episode of Planes, Trains, Automobiles. No. America, you know what really grinds my gears? You know what butters my biscuit?
Peter Griffith grinds my gears.
We talked about this, Cam. We talked about this, man. You can't.
No, I got something to say. No.
All right, y'all. Once again, thanks for joining us on the Folding List. Catch us next time. I'm sure we'll be talking about some great movie or some dumb movie. Either way, join us again. Thanks again, Kramer. Thanks again, Tired Stew. And see you next time on Folding List.